Hey, everybody, and welcome back to the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. Today, episode 138, we are looking at the future of the tax preparation industry. Yes, we are looking at the industry as a whole, busting out of the closet, dusting it off our crystal ball. We are looking into the future the best we can into the industry. But before we do it, as always, and dive into some of these details, let's take a brief moment and thank our episode sponsor.
Hi, Chris Picciero here, founder of Teaching Tax Flow, co-host of the Teaching Tax Flow podcast, and pickleball enthusiast. Yes, if you listen to the podcast, you know almost every episode we talk about pickleball, the most popular and growing sport in America. We have tons of opportunities for paddles and pickleballs, but we don't have a lot of great gear on the market. Well, I am so excited to announce that Sunsets and Dinks are now a sponsor of the Teaching Tax Flow podcast and produce amazing gear, not only to look at, but you feel confident on the court. Because you are part of the Teaching Tax Flow community, you get a 15% discount on all your orders with them. I know I love the gear I received, and I have quite a good record while wearing it, believe it or not, even at my level. Go to teachingtaxflow.com/pickleball and simply enter TTF15 in the serve up promo code area of your paddle rack.
Hey, everybody, we are back here again on the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. This time to talk about not you specifically, but we're going to talk about the industry. So obviously, as you see in the show notes, the title, you've probably heard us talking about this for a little while now in some way, shape, or form. We are going to look at the tax preparation industry. So what that means for you, the taxpayer, is that there is likely somebody that prepares your taxes. Yes, you may do your own. You may have a cousin, you may have an uncle, you may have a sister, brother, child, any of these people, but the industry specifically is made up of a ton of professionals, like this handsome gentleman here, I would say to my right, but actually to my left here on my screen, Chris Picciero. How's it going, man? How are you?
It's going well. How are you doing?
Doing good. So yeah, today we're going to talk a little bit about you and your people, I guess we can say, right? So you've been in this a while. You've been in the industry, what, 125 years? 100,
Feels like it. Dog years.
Yeah, just get it. But it's
gone
gone
by
through a lot of
fast,
changes,
actually.
right? So 20 plus years, but it's like, I mean, things have changed so much for you guys as tax pros, right? Like even just the, we could say the stereotype of what a tax and accounting professional is has drastically changed, right? Like you've gone from pocket protectors to jeans and a t-shirt in some cases. It's just everything, right? So tell us a little bit about even your experience, maybe like when you got into this. We won't get into the background story of that because we've done already, but like where do you see this? Like where we stand today and just kind of run with it here. Let us know what you think.
Absolutely. I mean, things have changed significantly in the last 20, 25 years. Just the onset of e-filing alone has changed a ton of things. If you can imagine, many listeners, 25 years ago, tax returns were mailed in. And especially on the tax preparation side, they were printed out, put in these fancy little packages or folders, and then they were given a copy was mailed in to every taxing authority. W-2s were stapled to these returns and processed by hand. It would be a long, long time before refunds were provided. They were mailed to people, not even direct deposit. And there's a lot of data security concerns just that alone, going into the mailing these things in. And actually, when I first started, if you filed a tax extension, you'd only get you'd get 4 months, and then you would have to do a secondary extension for another 2 months mailed in. So it's just pretty crazy. There's just a lot. And the other issue would be, let's say you were a tax professional and you printed out all of these returns, and then if someone came in and said, "Oh, by the way, I forgot to tell you I donated all this money to this church and I didn't give you that information." Well, now it's just a couple clicks and we can correct the return and re-put it in a portal, reprocess it. Before, it was quite a experience and a time commitment.
I can imagine. And you again, kind of not a history lesson on the tax professional industry, but I would say that your desk back in the day probably had numerous things on it, right? You probably had a ton of pens. You probably had the giant stapler, like the ones that have the big arms on it, binder clips you probably had in there. You probably had whiteout all over the place, and, whether it was the ones you twist the cap on and spill all over the place or it was the ribbon ones. So, little things like that, right? And I say that about whiteout is one thing. When was the last time you even seen that? I haven't seen a whiteout
Whiteout?
container
Oh
in probably
gosh,
10 years.
it's been a long time. Absolutely. There
Right,
was no such thing as importing data. It was just a very manual process. And
right.
and any changes to the process, any changes to the return were a big deal. They're significant. So you even just the paperwork. I mean, when we started, we would take all the clients' source documents, which could be stacks of paperwork, and we
Mhm.
would before the internet or before e-filing, we would actually make a photocopy of them. So it's funny, when I first started, the copier lease was almost as expensive as my office lease because your photocopier what, let alone becoming a scanner or a fax machine, was a huge burden. And the ribbon, so you would go through so much paper, and then you would save all those source documents internally, and then you'd have to house those source documents.
Right,
So
which is a whole whole 'other thing,
it
right?
is.
So would it be safe to say, obviously things have changed. Would I'm thinking of a word here, and I know we've talked about this, I've seen this. Would you really consider kind of the current situation, landscape, whatever we call it with the tax pro industry, is really being a crossroad or like a pivot point or something like that? Like, what do you think? Like, what's
I
your
think
opinion?
it's just an evolution. We talk about in our peer-to-peer coaching and mastermind group for other tax professionals. So if you are a tax professional, check out mrrinstitute.com and maybe join us. But we talk about you evolve or you erode. And so the industry's evolving. So as someone that in my position, that I want our private CPA practice to continue on well beyond my working years and my living years, go through generations of leadership. We are evolving. So we're constantly evolving, and we have to evolve with some of the changes that we're going to talk about today, because the tax preparation industry is going to continue to evolve. There are significant challenges for tax professionals, and as a result, taxpayers. So you need to be aware of them. And I mean, one of the roles I have in our private firm is to have a quick chat with any potential new clients before we start the process of potentially working together. And I tell them, this is, what we're going to talk about is 75% of CPAs are expected to retire in the next 15 years. So if you have a good CPA firm or tax professional or an enrolled agent, hold on to them. No one's perfect. It's like a spouse. Like, with the big, no, you're not going to find that perfect firm. You might not like their client portal. You might not like something about how they operate. But if they're doing a good job getting the best result possible and you feel like it's a partnership, then don't be so quick to just jump around and change.
Right. Send them a Christmas card. Don't wait for the one from them to you. keep
Exactly.
keep them happy. And
So it's
there, I know
funny, a
you
lot of
mentioned
times I
too.
tell people, just even though they're kind of looking around and talking to me about working with our firm, a lot of times I tell them hey, you got it pretty good too. I mean, if it's not broken, don't fix it. That being said, one of the other things we're going to talk about is tax preparation firms absolutely need to evolve themselves, and they need to move into tax planning and strategy to complement their tax preparation work or tax compliance work. So yeah, let's
And
look
when
at
you
the
say
landscape of
evolve,
where we're at.
and really when you say involve, obviously you're involved, evolving in the landscape, the current landscape of it, right? I would say that it's 100% safe to say that even though it's evolved and people may think like, oh, it's gotten so much easier with all these tools and not having to manage this. I'd almost say it probably has in some sense, right? But it's probably almost gotten more complex in others, right? So it's not like it's an easier gig, we should say.
It's definitely gotten more complex, yet more streamlined. So there with technology that we can shorten the process up, but there are several challenges with that process. You've heard me for almost 2 decades, but specifically over the last 5 years, talk constantly that the biggest challenge in tax compliance or tax preparation, and when I say compliance work, that means bookkeeping, payroll processing, and tax preparation, is getting good information from people. Once you have good information, you're in good shape. You could be an amazing chef and but if you don't have half the ingredients you need to make the meal you're trying to make, it's going to get compromised. It's not going to taste as good, or you just can't make it.
That's a great way.
That,
Yeah, so
so,
so tax prep kind of starts with the taxpayer, we should say.
oh,
If you're not
absolutely.
if you're not doing
Absolutely.
your role or pulling your weight as the taxpayer, giving you all your information, you can only do as good as what you're given.
I bet one of the better examples is going to the dentist, right? You go to the dentist to get your teeth cleaned. You should twice a year. Sometimes they run into something that they need to address, and it's ultimately up to you if you want to address it. So, hey, you got this cavity forming. You might, if you might be nothing, it might become a root canal, whatever. It might have to go get extracted at one point. But when you go to the dentist to get cleaning, you still brush your teeth before you go, right? I mean, you don't pound a coffee and 3 donuts and go in there. At least I hope you do. But the cleaning is so you've got to do your part. You've got to show up. You've got, and the hygienist and the dentist can do wonders, but they need your participation, right? They can't, if you're squirming around or you're missing late for your appointment, or you're, you never floss and never brush and then get upset that you have 4 cavities. Ultimately, it's up to you. It's your decision. And John, but full disclosure, probably my 2 biggest fears are going to the dentist and geese, but that's another episode.
I was wondering if you were going to bring up geese. You did.
Well, my wife and I
Congratulations.
were on a walk, and then I went for a run. We recently went to the Smoky Mountains with our family, and I crossed the street mostly because there are 2 geese, adult geese, with about 8 goslings, and you don't mess with if you see them with their babies, get out of the way, because they're first of all, they're very mean creatures, dirty creatures. They like
Yeah,
to.
one day we'll dive into your real feelings on the geese, and then
But
maybe I'll tell my swan stories with me and a jet ski where I
swan
got
could
into
be nastier than geese, but at least they only
we
attack you
exchanged
when you
fists.
are on the water.
Oh yeah. Let's put it this way: if I ever tell my swan story, I hope nobody from the DNR is listening to that, because they will be on my doorstep.
I'm sure the
Uh,
statute of limitations has expired.
yes, and I'm sure that swan's long gone. Plus, he can't testify if we went to court.
But anyway,
Anyways,
so I walked. So I went across the street to avoid the geese, and then on the way back, we were kind of walking back. They're kind of in the middle of the road, because of course they think their poop doesn't stink, even though it ends up on your windshield, right? And luckily, there was a barrage of vehicles driving on the street to set a pick for anyone who's played basketball. You know what a pick is, right? You set a pick for someone. Set a pick for my wife and I to go around the geese without having to deviate our path. It has nothing to do with tax preparation, but so let's dive into our landscape here.
has to do with planning, though. You're good.
It does, yeah. You could, that's a good way. Your tax professional sometimes could protect you from the IRS or the geese.
I love how these conversations randomly go in the craziest directions, but yet somehow, some way, they always circle back in. So let's talk about the landscape, as we said. Like right now, what does the industry look like? Why are people, are they not? Are they not planning to? Are they looking to get into the industry? Do they want to go, I don't know, avoid being a geese, or a goose, I should say. Avoid being a goose.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So the
So,
first thing
what does
is,
it look like?
let's talk about the future of the tax professional industry. Number one issue is we have a shortage of CPAs and tax professionals. Not all CPAs are tax professionals. There's other things that we can do. And not all tax professionals need to be CPAs. We have tons of friends that are enrolled agents, and you've had the opportunity to really meet a lot of those people. They are super talented people. Many of them have been on podcasts on this guest. Many of them I collaborate with regularly. But But we have a lot more data on on CPAs. So just as an indicator of where industry's at, we have, like I said, 75% of CPAs are expected to retire within the next 15 years. And since 2016, from 2016 to 2023, we've had a 37% drop in CPA exam candidates. So if we have less than we have a dangerous mix of 37% drop in people even sitting for the CPA exam, 75% of people leaving the profession. That's not good. We also have about a 17% decrease in accounting degree completions between 2012 and 2022. So we see those indicators. Like it's just like, John, it's a good way to say it is our industry's driving around with our engine light on and blinking at us super brightly. Not any, it's a combination of all these factors. Why? Why is this happening? At least on the CPA side, because there's a 150-hour requirement of college, which is basically a master's degree. We have outdated education paths, and we just, it's just there's too many barriers of entry to be a CPA. I know that sounds ridiculous because as one, you think, oh, I got this designation. Let me try to make it hard for everyone else. There's a big push, and a lot of state societies are advocating for there to be. We could still stick with the traditional path, but we want some alternative paths that if you could pass a CPA exam and you show a level of competency to serve the public, and you decide to go into the tax preparation and planning world, then you should be able to be licensed. So that's it. Now, what are we doing as CPA firms, tax firms? A lot of them are hiring offshores. A lot of them in the Philippines and in India and in South America to meet demand because we don't have the talent coming into the industry. And a lot of it too is the culture of CPA firms, specifically their tax firms. It used to be this red badge of honor, like, yeah, I worked 90 hours last week. I worked 100 hours. That mentality is outdated. And, a ton of tax professionals. There's a few of them out there that absolutely love to say, look, I'm willing to work 90 to 100 hours a week for about 3 months. My life's going to be miserable. And I think I can make enough money to live comfortably the rest of the year. Maybe do some other projects, do some work, and I'm good with it. There are some tax professionals that works for. That being said, it's very rare that someone that is either married in a serious committed relationship or has children can operate like that. They're
Right.
usually more
Yeah,
of a
it's just
Han Solo, basically.
right. It's just like a drain. And you're right. I mean, it is interesting, me not being a tax pro at all. As I always mention, I'm like the dumbest person in the room, but we go to a conference, which I enjoy, unless somebody starts talking marketing and then I feel real smart. But yeah, some people just really enjoy, that crunch time. So if somebody, to everybody that's listening or watching this, you might have one of those and it's not a bad thing. It's not terrible. I mean, sure, there might be things that they don't do, or you call or email them in July and you don't hear back until August. I mean, that's a problem. But if I if that works for them, basically what I'm hearing here, right, is there's such a shortage now, but it doesn't look very positive looking
No, it
forward
doesn't. It
at the
doesn't look
moment.
positive.
Because, yeah, like you mentioned, there's so much data around it. There's data and facts of the current situation, but then there's also a lot of data and what are going to be deeper, more truthful facts in foresight. And there's not, because it's not like I could wake up tomorrow and say, you know what? I think I'm going to be a tax pro. And in 6 months, I'm one. Like it doesn't happen. That's currently.
No, you can. You can enter the tax. You could work at a tax firm, but it's going to take you a long time to get licensed. So we have the what we call the retirement cliff and pipeline issue. That's one. Number two, we have a more compressed time with deadlines. Now, as you know, in our private CPA firm, about 75% of our clients, probably 2/3 to 75%, we intentionally prepare tax extensions. Many people, and I'm a firm believer in tax extensions if it allows you with the best result possible. However, many people still feel like I want my tax return done by April 15th. Well, there's a compression of time. Even if you had every document available to you on January 1st to have your tax return prepared, it would still be challenging to get all of the returns prepared. let alone many of the forms are being delayed to get to you. So, for instance, let's just focus on one. A very, very common form is a 1099B. That is comes from a brokerage. So anyone that has a brokerage account that owns stocks, mutual funds, EFTs, et cetera, et cetera. It could be with E-Trade, it could be with Fidelity, you could be working with a great financial advisor like we have in the teaching tax law community. Okay. Those are typically due to the taxpayer by February 18th. But many, many times they get delayed. So they'll get a preliminary one. And many, many times they don't actually receive the 1099B until March. It's not even due to the IRS if you e-file it from the brokerage till March 31st. And this includes, remember we had Ty Gaines on recently, amazing crypto digital asset enrolled agent expert. So that includes digital assets also. So now all of these forms are coming out sometime between the middle of February all the way to the end of March and creating a ton of compression just because we're having delays in getting documents. Some documents, John, you're a taxpayer. You get some of your documents emailed to you January 5th, 6th, no big deal. But a lot of times these documents are coming out later, including K-1 forms, if you're involved in different types of investments. So the second issue in our industry, which is compounding the work compression, which is a domino effect of why a lot of people don't want to enter this industry because of the work compression during certain times of the year, are that we're getting delayed in tax return, our documents coming to us in a delayed fashion.
And looking at,
That's
another
beyond your
analogy
control.
back to the one I think you mentioned before about a restaurant, right? So basically what's happening per what you were just talking about is it's almost like you go into a restaurant with the expectation of it being a Michelin star, excellent meal, excellent preparation. It's great. Everything's kind of customized for you. And you get there and you're like, oh, well, you close in 10 minutes. Can I put in my order right now? And they're like, yeah, we can have it to you in 10 minutes, but it's not going to be good. Like it'll get there, but it's not going to happen. So, and everybody's tax prep needs, whether I would probably say literally every single person is customized. I mean, down to like, even if you have the same exact income as somebody else, your social number's different. So there's something different in there that you just can't press one button, copy, paste. It's done. It's done. It's done. It's not going to happen. Not
I
going to
know
happen.
I'm gonna die on the hill of saying there is no such thing as an easy tax return. I get people disagreeing with me. I even have some tax professionals disagree. There's no such thing as an easy tax return because everyone is unique.
And I've
Even
seen people say, I haven't seen them argue with you about that, but I've seen them say like, oh, well, yeah, there is. And you know what? My response to that would be is like the peanut gallery. I would say that you are 100% right. There's no easy tax returns. There's easier tax returns.
right, there could be more straightforward, but um, I'm gonna throw you out there, John.
Yeah. Chuck me in there. You'll be
Nothing
a strong
personal,
dude.
right? But let's think about a
Yeah.
situation where let's say you didn't have your own marketing agency, you weren't involved in teaching tax law, you received a W-2 from a chamber of commerce. Your wife receives a W-2. You bought a home in Michigan, right? Seems like a pretty quote unquote easy tax return. Then you think sometimes we forget actually. Oh wait, I used to have a property in South Carolina. We rented it out. We're about to sell it. Now you have a rental property. Oh, we had a child. Yeah, she goes to daycare. Oh yeah, no, now you have the child tax credit. Oh, now do you even qualify? Now you might have the child and dependent care credit. Oh wow. Oh yeah, we bought this house. We're rehabbing it. Gosh, I forgot we did all those windows. Do we have energy efficient? Oh, maybe. Oh, you know what? The more I think about it, yeah, I did put some money away in there to my daughter's 529 plan, and I live in Michigan. There's a deduction there. Oh, yeah, that's right. So all of a sudden,
Just
this
snowballs.
looks like, hey, two W-2s. Yeah, we own a house. And you're like, that's a lot of stuff. Uh,
And that's
so
like, I think we did an episode, I don't know if we went into a lot of detail on it. It's like really like getting to know your tax professional. I don't know if this was on this show or another one, but like that's really where it comes in, right? Like y- you're you're basically not married to your tax pro, but you have to trust them. They have to feel comfortable, right, to ask you tough questions. Because if they're not going to ask you some questions, or, you can't expect them to know everything about you, but their relationship has to be there. Because again, like you can, as we mentioned, you can only do as good as the information you're given. It's like giving somebody directions and not telling them how to get to your house, but you tell them how to get to 2 streets away. Well, they don't know
Mhm.
how to go the extra 100 yards if you don't give me your address. They don't know what it is.
Oh, absolutely. It's like so you just don't know, and that doesn't include other things, anyway, there's just could be a lot of stuff, right? There could be, "Oh, my wife changed jobs and she rolled over her 401k." Okay, it might not be taxable, but we need to report that 1099-R because we need to make sure the IRS knows, even if it's coded properly, that was rolled over to another account. So there's no such thing as an easy tax return. Now there might be people that are easy to deal with, and those are the kind of people I like to deal with. But
Right.
there, but
Easy people, difficult returns, difficult people, difficult returns. You get rid of them.
I'll take easy person, complex return all day. Um, if I'm a tax professional. All right, so we've got that delay. Now, so this kind of ties into the rising complexity of tax returns. There's another factor, right? We to 20 look at like 2024 returns. We now have tons of digital asset reporting. We have short-term rental properties. We've got restricted stock options. I'm thinking about just yesterday, the day from recording this, I had a bunch of meetings. I talked about RSU, restricted stock options. I talked to a couple that's starting a wellness center. I talked to someone that has a short-term rental property. I talked to someone that her spouse passed away. I've talked to someone who has digital asset reporting. Um, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, like there are tons of different complexities now that weren't there before, and more forms. So, and it's going to get more complex in 2025 with the new digital at 1099 DA stands for digital assets. And we had a couple podcast episodes before the 1099K with all of these Venmo transactions and that sort of stuff. So there'll be more forms to tangle with. Oh, by the way, we have the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act that's set to expire. We have pending legislation right now on the federal level that could hit and change a ton of stuff. And then you have to think about, does a state comply? John, you've kind of dipped your toes. Not really. You've been in a lot of meetings where we're talking about tax planning and strategy. So there are several tax mitigation strategies that are built for a federal tax return that we have to actually look at every state one by one and determine if the state complies with that deduction or that credit, et cetera, et cetera. So rising complexity of the returns, shorter amount of time to do it, less people that can do it, are a bad cocktail for the future of the tax preparation industry.
Oh, yeah, and
Now,
I'm sure that actually leads into something. I don't know if we're gonna talk about it next or later on, uh, just about technology, right? Like all these tools, AI, all these things that are out there. Uh, is it good? Is it bad? What does that look like?
I think we have to. So yeah. So how's AI going to help? How's it going to play a role with tax preparation? How's it going to play a role for taxpayers? And how's it going to play a role for the government? Right. Let's talk about
Very
that.
true.
AI and automation. Now, we have another podcast just for tax professionals called the Mr. R Show. We have a nationally recognized speaker join us, a guy named John Higgins, specifically talk about AI in our profession for an hour because the show's an hour. Because it has to be compliant for continuing ed. And he put it best: CPA firms, tax firms, that AI is not going to replace your firm, but firms that use AI are going to replace firms that don't use AI. So if you're working with a tax professional that refuses to use AI in any capacity, that might be a little short-sighted, and I'd be very concerned about them as a going concern. They're either going to close up shop, or it's not a sellable asset. It's not going to be something that it's a concern. Let's just put it that way.
And it ties right back to what you mentioned earlier, right? The evolve or erode
Mm.
comparison. Like that, this is a huge part of it. The adaptability, we should say, of technology. Adaptability.
So according to a recent survey by Thomson Reuters, who's a leading software company and research company in our industry, 84% of accounting professionals view AI as a positive force. So the sentiment with us is good. Out there, like, you're like, well, AI is going to replace you guys. Trust me, we're not worried. We're using it as a lightsaber, and we're the Jedi, right? It's not a bad guy. It's not a stormtrooper. 21% of firms use AI at the enterprise level, which doesn't seem like a lot right now, but it was 8% a year ago. That's 2.5 times growth, and obviously our firm uses it already. We're an adapter of that. We're typically going to be an early adapter.
I love when you quote anything from Thomson Reuters because I want to hear it from your mouth because where they're, I think, in their main office, only office.
Yeah, yeah, they're Ann Arbor based.
There you go.
The dark
There you
side.
go.
That's why I wanted to write that. Put Stormtrooper in there.
For anybody that doesn't know, Chris is a giant University of Michigan fan. Huge.
Yes, but just we'll cut that out. Anyway, but AI, what's AI? How's AI helping tax professionals in document intake, in tax projections, in classifying source documents, in research, in fraud detection? And let's be clear. The IRS is already testing AI for audits and scanning of forms. The IRS is using AI right now because most of their notices are matching notices. We've talked about the CP 2000 many times, and right now the IRS software will grab your transcript and then it'll grab what was reported to them. It's still clunky. Once AI starts coming in, tax notices are going to be on the rise. So the IRS might be on a hiring freeze. They might have not as many people, but they're going to lean into this because it's a slam dunk for them to find unreported income and put the burden back on the taxpayer.
Right.
So
makes sense.
So what are we going to do here? Right? This sounds pretty grim. Sounds bad. So if you're a tax professional, what should you do, right? I think that these compliance-only firms, and we talk about this all the time in our consulting work, are going to go away. They're going to become obsolete. Maybe they're not going to go away, but they're going to be obsolete, similar to a VCR. You might be able to find someone somewhere that could fix your VCR, but not too many people can anymore, right? There used to be kind of like you have cell phone repair shops in every town. You used to have VCR repair shops in every town. There might be a few out there, but not too many. So they're going to become obsolete. In fact, I feel like they are already obsolete. I think that tax professionals are focusing on value-based billing and subscription models. Hey, that's interesting because that's what our firm has done for over a decade. But we're seeing it out there. And I think that as the taxpayer, you should embrace that. If someone is solving a $10,000 problem for you and you're getting charged $2,000, that's still pretty good. That's really good. Firms, I think, should really, as you know, John, focus on advisory. You want your tax professional to be working in tax advisory and be around all year round to answer your questions, but they do need that revenue to do that. Helping people with business structure and tax planning and deduction planning, and being very, very transparent with costs. John, I had a note call yesterday, and then I had a call 2 days ago with meetings with potential clients. In both situations, they said, "I don't care what it costs. We just need you come so highly recommended." Not me, my team. My team comes so highly recommended. We just want you to help us. I said, "Well, I haven't done your quote yet, so I don't know why you're telling me it doesn't matter what it's cost." But the thing is, they trust that I'm going to be very fair, right? My role is kind of working on the quoting. So even though, and I told both parties, two separate parties, even though I realize that your price is not your number one driver and you're not super price sensitive, I'm going to be extremely transparent with any of the costs. That is essential. That establishes trust between your tax professional and the taxpayer. As the taxpayer, tax professionals, if you're listening to this, be transparent. How would you go to a restaurant we get it. Sometimes there's something on the menu that says market value. Now I'm too thrifty to order that, and we can appreciate that. But what if you went to a restaurant, opened the menu, and nothing on there had a price? You'd be a little squirrely, wouldn't you?
Right. And you wouldn't just say, "Oh, I'm hungry. I don't care what it costs."
No,
You're always going to look at options a little bit.
you would go to another. Yeah, you just go to a different restaurant. Um, so yeah, be transparent with the costs. As a taxpayer, understand that tax professionals, we're going to probably see more mergers and acquisitions. We're going to probably see more outsourcing overseas. And if you're comfortable with the data security of the firm you're working with, I wouldn't be super concerned about it. John, you probably order. Well, you like to fix crap, right? So let's say you ordered I don't know, what would you order? Like a saw, some fancy saw or something? I don't know. Well,
Yeah, we could say that.
yeah, and let's say something went wrong and you have to call the 800 number. You're probably going to be talking to someone overseas at some point.
Mhm.
When you went to buy the saw, did you even think, oh gosh, if they might have overseas help? So in other words, it's not that big of a stigma anymore. If you work with a firm and they outsource some of the compliance work, the data entry work overseas, I wouldn't treat that as a deal breaker. That's just my own personal opinion.
Right. Because it seems like, too, a lot of people that are outsourcing, excuse me, outsourcing with some help like that, right? It's filling that talent gap, at least in the short term. Do the firm owners, does your tax professional look at that as an ideal situation? No, but it's a good solution, a great solution actually for a problem they have. But then also, right? I imagine, I know I see with you guys, and I've heard about it and seen with other practices, but a lot of them aren't. They're carrying their process that's tried and true to their firm, and they're just bringing in that individual to help. It's not like it's just a crapshoot and stuff's just flying all over the place. It's still operating in a very efficient manner. Right, if they
Absolutely.
outsource.
We all have to adapt. We all have to move forward together. And, for some people, you've got, for taxpayers, you have options, right? You've got self-preparation. Again, for some people that could work. You've got hybrid models where you might have self-preparation with professional assistance. Um,
Right.
ultimately, you want legally and ethically to pay the least amount of tax possible. In the vast majority of the time, that that requires the assistance of a very highly trained tax professional. And for them to give you that attention you deserve, we already know the constraints that both the taxpayer and tax professional have. They're going to have to make some changes. They're going to have to evolve and get more streamlined using technology, AI, and potentially outsourced labor overseas.
Well, this was a great conversation because I know even me and you, on the sake of transparency, I know we've talked about this probably at least every other day in some way, shape, or form, but only for 30 seconds, 20, like really quick stuff. So this was awesome actually getting to sit down, virtually, uh, and talk through this with you, kind of hear and see, your opinion, but then also as we can say enlighten the general audience or listener, our community, just what it looks like for the taxpayer. We looked at this, and I think we started off too as like waving the flags around, like, oh crap, we got a problem. And yes, there is a challenge. There is a problem. It's not the greatest thing in the world, but also too, I think with it being such a dire situation, I believe, I'm hopeful, I should say, that it'll probably start to get more of the attention from people that can make it easier, more streamlined for people to get into it. It's not going to be tomorrow. It's probably gonna be 5 years from now, minimum. But then also, like, what a heck of an opportunity for
Mhm.
somebody younger or older that may want to really get into the industry, right? Like
Right.
now, I think more than ever, we talked about earlier, the stigmas of like pocket protectors and highlighters and whiteout and having to sit at a desk all day, drinking more Diet Cokes than, the local party store has. It's Now you can come in as a business owner, like the entrepreneurial mindset comes in and plays such a huge part in a true tax professional. They're not separate anymore.
And to wrap it up, yeah, for the taxpayer. For the taxpayer, you've got a challenge, right? And I always say if I walked into a room of 100 dentists, I wouldn't know who's a good dentist and who's a bad. But here's the cool thing as a taxpayer. You might walk in a room of 100 tax professionals and you can't tell me who's good and bad just by looking at them. But now we have the internet. So go check out their content, look at their website, see if they have reviews, see if they've got any type of videos, YouTube channel. Do they have anything out there? Have they written articles? Have they collaborated with people? Have they done projects? Have they appeared, even done a presentation at the local library? You get a feel of how they operate, and you could pretty much figure out if they're going to be a good fit by just checking things out. And you might go to somewhere and say, "Hell, this person's in my local town. They have a website that says coming soon. They don't have any social media presence." And okay, but understand that they're probably not. They might have some capacity issues. They're probably not going to evolve to the point where you might want them to, or that might be a good fit for you. Maybe you're the kind of person that likes to bring your box of stuff in, have a coffee, and talk through things with the tax professional, and then that person might be a good fit for you.
It's like dating. There's a right person for everybody out there. Just got to find them. But awesome, Chris. Well, I appreciate it, man. Definitely a longer discussion we had here, but again, I appreciate it. I'm sure our listeners will as well too. And yeah, I mean, I can almost guarantee we're going to be touching base on this one multiple times as things change. And then we have a much longer conversation coming up with the CEO and I think his executive director, CEO of the MICPA, so the Michigan Association of CPAs. So we look forward to that on the other show, on the Mr. R Show. But for now, if anybody has any questions on this, please just drop us a line. I'd say if you really want to be modern, right? Don't even email us. Get on Facebook, send us a Facebook message, LinkedIn message, heck, get on our TikTok and watch some videos, some reels on there. Shoot us something on there. Join Defeating Taxes. DefeatingTaxes.com is our private Facebook group. Join that. Tons of tax pros in there. Heck, even get in there and maybe razz some of these tax pros if you want. If you want to have a little fun with it, we'll let you get in there. But enjoy it. Again, the grass is not greener necessarily on the other side, but it's also not dead. So let's think about it that way. Everybody's going to be fine. It's going to be good here. We're still in a great spot. So as always, as we love to close out this podcast with, we'll see everybody back here again next week, roughly different time, completely different topic on the Teaching Tax Flow podcast. Have a great week, everybody.
The content provided is for educational purposes only. We encourage you to seek personalized investment advice from your financial professional. For all tax and legal advice, please consult your CPA or attorney. Investment advisory services are offered through Cabin Advisors, a registered investment advisor. Securities are offered through Cabin Securities, a registered broker-dealer. The content of this podcast does not constitute an offer of securities. Offerings can only be made through an offering memorandum, and you should carefully examine the risk factors and other information contained in the memorandum.